you just ate dinner, right? You're not hungry. So why do you want to know what you can eat when you're most likely not hungry? It's just only a little bit of chocolate. It's just only 1 or 2 squares, right? And that's the justifying and rationalizing why it's okay to eat it. I've been good all day long, so therefore I get to eat X, whatever the X is, right? And then they eat the X, and then they feel, some guilt and remorse. And then they're like, you know what? I blew it. I may as well keep on eating. There's definitely science behind, especially with sugar, right? We know that it kind of like rings that dopamine bell. Sugar is addictive, just like cocaine. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel from Primal Wellness Coaching. Quick reminder, if you like our show, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, that share button, leave us a review, give us a comment. All of these things help our show to go out to the masses and keep us going. And for those of you that have already done it, we thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. Today, we are going to be talking with Lisa Goldberg. Lisa is a nutritionist and a mindset and weight loss expert with a master's degree in clinical nutrition from New York University. Lisa has been coaching busy, high-achieving professionals to lasting weight loss for over 20 years. And she focuses on teaching her clients how to break their self-sabotaging eating patterns and change their relationship with food by making intentional cognitive habit and behavioral changes. And through this work, her clients lose their unwanted weight and they know how to keep it off for good. Lisa is also the author of the book Food Fight: Winning the Battle with Food and Eating to Achieve Sustainable Weight Loss, which you can get on Amazon. And since 2015, Lisa has been coaching clients virtually all over the world. So I will link to Lisa in the show notes for this episode at thesuperhumanblueprintpodcast.com so you can get in touch with her. Lisa Goldberg, welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with you today.
I am excited to have this conversation with you because you have a very unique approach. And, well, selfishly, I want to learn about it, but I'm sure our listeners want to learn about it as well. So you are a nutritionist or a dietitian nutritionist, correct?
Right. I'm a nutritionist. I'm a clinical nutritionist. And so while I do help my clients with, health issues and, certain chronic conditions, what I really do is work with people who struggle with emotional eating and yo-yo dieting, because it's the emotional eating that leads to the yo-yo dieting. Because what I've found in my 20 years of doing this work is that it's not that people don't know how to eat healthy or what healthy eating looks like, right? Because most people who want to lose weight have been on a million diets.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they go on some kind of a diet that's not sustainable for the long term. And so while they might lose the weight, they don't change their old habits and behaviors, or how they've been eating isn't a way to keep on eating to keep the weight off that they've lost.
Mm-hmm.
So their old habits, their old mindset, their old what I call the dieter's mindset, that self-talk comes back and sabotages them. And it's a combination of that sabotaging self-talk and the old programming of whatever their relationship is with food that causes them to yo-yo diet.
Uh-huh.
So that's really the work that I do, is kind of like getting underneath and figuring out, what do you say to yourself? What are the habits and behaviors that get you to keep, repeating the yo-yo dieting cycle?
Yeah, and that's very unique. And what I think most people expect from a nutritionist, and generally the profile of a nutritionist, is to talk nutrition, right? Okay, let's look at you and let's look at your body and let's give you foods that you can eat that are going to, support whatever it is that your goals are, whether it's to look better, feel better, be healthier, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's more than that, right? There's more than just saying, eat this, don't eat that.
Right. Well, when I first started working with clients, when I first got my degree in nutrition, that's what I started doing,
Mm-hmm.
telling them exactly what they should eat, figuring out, what their life was like, kind of helping them plan, a nutritious menu based on, what time they wake up, what time they go to bed.
Yeah, and people need that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're, as humans, we're routine by nature, right?
Yep.
So, it was helping them establish that routine. But what I began to realize was that's not really what they needed help with, right? Eat
Okay.
this, not that, this amount of calories, protein, fat, and carbs, how many grams of this, how many grams of that. Interestingly, so many of my clients that I started working with asked me the same question. What can I
Okay.
eat after dinner? Was the question.
That's
Because,
okay.
all right,
Yeah.
because I didn't work in that after dinner snack when I
Right.
created their nutrition plan.
Yep.
And so enough of them asked me that question. And I was always like, but you just ate dinner, right? You're not hungry. So why do you want to know what you can eat when you're most likely not hungry?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of really started me thinking there's something more here. They want
Okay.
to feed something. They want to eat. They're not hungry.
Yeah.
That's the habit,
It's emotional.
right?
It's habit. Yeah.
And so I felt like, well, I can't help you perpetuate the behavior that hasn't been serving you, because at the end of the day, any food we eat, they'd be like, what about an apple? Or what about an orange? And I'm like, but still, if you're not hungry, why continue eating?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started to realize that it's emotional, it's habitual,
Yep.
sometimes it's environmental, and it's really the habits and behaviors and the thinking around those habits and behaviors that really needed to change.
By environmental, do you mean like they're in a space where other people are have these same habits and they're just kind of doing what's happening around them?
Yeah, or it could be that, right? A lot of times somebody's, partner or spouse has their thing that they eat after dinner, so they feel left out if they don't participate, or they just think, well, I'm going to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
But environmental also could be just you go to after dinner, you go to the same place, like let's just say the living room, you go to the same place, you sit in the same chair, right? By 8 o'clock, you're watching whatever same program that you watch. And then you think, I feel like eating something.
Yeah.
The operative words being, I feel like,
Yep.
right? Eating something,
I'm
not
hungry.
I'm hungry.
I feel like eating something.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
I
So,
feel like I'm being personally attacked right now, by the way. Just kidding.
why is that you? Does any of this sound familiar?
You know, I in the last only 6 months probably I picked up having a couple of squares of chocolate after dinner,
Okay.
and
What do you tell yourself about those squares of chocolate?
that they have great antioxidants,
Okay. Anything else?
that they taste good.
Okay.
That
Well,
yeah.
that could be what I notice a lot of people say is it's just only a little bit of chocolate. It's just
Yeah.
only one or two squares, right? And that's the justifying and
Mm-hmm.
rationalizing why it's okay to eat it.
Oh, we can justify anything.
We could justify anything. Exactly. But that's part of the process that I teach, is listening for the thoughts in your head, because our actions will always follow our thoughts. And most people, if they've been doing the same behavior over and over, don't even notice that the thoughts that they think around food.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody who struggles with emotional eating and who've been on a million diets, lost the weight and gained it back again, they have a very strong dieter's mindset, which is a very black and white way of thinking.
Yep.
Right?
Can you explain dieter's mindset?
Yeah. So it's a very black and white way of thinking. They're either in or they're out. They're in or they're
Okay.
out. They're on or they're off something, right?
Okay.
The dieter's mindset. And for those who are listening who could relate to this, you want to lose weight. So you've eaten well, right? The person would say, I've been good all day, right? That's their words. I've been good all day long. So therefore I get to eat X, whatever the X is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they eat the X, and then they feel, some guilt and remorse. And then they're like, you know what? I blew it. I may as well keep on eating, right? And I'll be better
Yep.
tomorrow, or I'll
Yep.
start again tomorrow. So there's how the dieter's mindset works. I blew it is so prevalent.
Yep. And that's I have to imagine that is completely normal. Like, you probably have to work through that with anyone that's ever tried to diet. It's either you're all in, or suddenly, without even making the decision, you're kind of all out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how people, quote unquote, diet. That's how they've been taught to lose weight. They have to follow this thing. They need to eat just these foods. They could never, what I call indulge, right? They might call it, the dieter might call it cheating, but I call it indulging. And of course, cheating has a negative connotation.
Yeah.
Because there's really nothing to cheat on if you're mindful about what you eat. And, I do teach my clients that over the course of the week, you can indulge. You can't eat a whole cake, but you could certainly have a piece of cake and still lose weight at the end of the week. So people, when it comes to weight loss, people have been taught that they have to cut out the cake, they have to cut out the wine, they have to cut out the bread, they have to cut out all the sugar, they have to cut out all of this stuff. And there's the way of eating that's restrictive. People feel deprived, and that's not sustainable forever because it's not realistic. It's not realistic to eat that way.
Yeah. So what do we do about it, right? I mean, so you coach people on mindset, right? So how do you do that? How do you get people to either change their perspective on dieting or to redefine what it means to diet or to eat in a certain way?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any other word for our diets except for diet, right?
Right.
So
which has a dual meaning, right? A diet is just how you eat, or it is a program or whatever that you're on with a goal.
Exactly. So, so what I tell my clients is you're not going on a diet.
Okay.
It's about how to eat in the life that you live, and everybody's life is different.
Yep.
And so I offer them kind of 7 days, right? Over the course of 7 days, if you eat well most of the time, you could eat a little crappy some of the time, so you don't have that restriction and deprivation, right? And that crappy some of the time could look like a couple of cookies or some chocolate or a piece of chocolate cake or a cheeseburger and fries, right? Whatever, the indulgence is.
Right.
But I also teach them that maybe the first 3 forkfuls of that chocolate cake is all that they really need to get the pleasure, because we eat that food for pleasure, right? The indulgences are fattening, unhealthy food. That it's so ironic that the stuff that people want to eat and feel like they're depriving themselves of is the crappy, unhealthy food. So
have you ever looked into the science behind that? Like the psychological science behind like those endorphins or whatever?
Well, I mean, there's definitely science behind, especially with sugar, right? We know that it kind of like rings that dopamine bell.
Yeah.
Sugar is addictive, just like cocaine. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want, right? So there is definitely science behind that.
Yep.
But in addition to the science, there's also the self-talk, right? The belief, I have to have it. I have to have something sweet after dinner. And the more you say, I have to have, well, then you believe that you have to have it. But the truth is you don't. Right? It's actually not a fact.
You won't die if you do not have that piece of cheesecake.
So a lot of the work is to hear the self-talk and then change it.
Okay.
Right? I change the I have to have to I actually don't have to have. Right? I'll feel better. I'm not depriving myself if I don't have it. What I'm actually depriving myself of is weight loss, feeling better in my body, right? Fitting into those pants that I've been dying to get back into. That's really what you're depriving yourself of when you overeat or overindulge in unhealthy food, right? And, we eat that food for pleasure and because it tastes good. So I feel like that's okay. Like the other day, I posted, because I run a group program, and I ate a cheeseburger and fries, and I posted the picture to, my group, and I'm like, I practice what I preach, right? Because it just, and I feel like that's really important, because it's not the cheeseburger and fries. It's not that one meal that's going to be the game changer.
Right.
Right. And that's what people believe, that they've done something wrong. And so then there's all this like self-blame and self-loathing. And truthfully, for the emotional eater, it's really like a terrible cycle.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's really hard for people to get out of on their own. Right. Because that's where the mindset stuff is. That's where the old programming is about, I've done something wrong. And the self-blame and the guilt, which actually causes them to say, what's the use? I can't do it anyway. I may as well keep on eating. right? So it ties
Yep.
into the low self-esteem, the dieter's mindset, the limiting beliefs, all of that stuff when it comes to food and eating. So, but I just want to say, but, for those people who are listening who can relate to this, it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just the way your mind's been programmed when it comes to eating and weight loss.
And how do you coach people on this in a way that is personalized, right? Because you're doing most or all of your coaching virtually. And so how do you know what someone's self-talk is, like how serious or strong it is, how many times a day it kicks in? I mean, these are just conversations, right? But how does this play out with you and your client?
Well, because they tell me in our coaching calls, and I do
Okay.
both private and group coaching, so it's
Okay.
a little bit different how I get the information.
One of the most simple hacks to improve your overall quality of life, including things like energy, immunity, mood, and more, is to get better sleep. And I am going to help you sleep better completely free. The thing is, sleep is easy to ignore. Life gets busy and sleep loses priority. There's a problem, though. Where many of you want to sleep better, you can't seem to. The thing is, so many things have become a part of a normal lifestyle in our society, which are secretly sabotaging many aspects of our wellness, including sleep. That is why I created the Hack Your Sleep program. In this program, I am going to give you a number of low to no cost, simple to implement hacks you can start doing right now to fix your sleep. By using these tips and hacks, you will fall asleep easier, stay asleep longer, and most importantly, sleep deeper, allowing your body to cycle through the many stages of sleep multiple times throughout the night. That is how recovery happens. That is how you wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready to unleash your best self. And because you're a Superhuman Blueprint podcast listener, I am going to give you access to this course completely free. Go to hackyoursleep.net and use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. That is hackyoursleep.net, Superhuman at checkout. This will get you 100% off and on the path to getting better sleep than you've had since you were a kid. Quick interruption here for all of you that are checking out this episode on video, on YouTube, or on Spotify. We encountered a technical problem, and the remainder of the episode will be audio only, but it is a high-quality audio composition, so you are good to go. Stick around and listen to the rest of my chat with Lisa Goldberg.
But, as we're having these conversations, like with my private clients, they actually send me food records and they also send me their thoughts. So
Okay.
I want them to capture the thoughts of what they were saying to themselves. Like, I was afraid, what if I get hungry, right? In the group, it's really more through the group coaching and the private coaching, because there is some private coaching with group, but nonetheless, like, I want to know the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could get the person imagining back to the situation, back to the moment where they were eating, they can recall what they said to themselves and how they justified and how they convinced themselves to eat that thing.
Okay.
Right? And it could be something like, I just need it. I have to have it. It's going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
I'll worry about it. And so the work is to help them rewrite the script, right? I'm like, here's what you need to say instead. Here's the conversation that needs to happen. Because when they tell me what they're thinking and they hear it with their own ears, intellectually, they're like, that sounds crazy. It's like, I know that sounds crazy. But while the thought is in their head, it feels real and natural and normal and logical.
Mm-hmm.
It's until they start talking about it that they realize that it's not, right? That if they were going to say it to somebody else or a friend, that it would sound a little wacky, right?
Yep.
Some of these things.
But I have to imagine in a group coaching session where people are sharing this, other people are listening and going, "Oh yeah, that's me." So, all of a sudden
100%.
they realize that they're, I'm not some piece of crap that just is sabotaging myself. Like, I'm kind of normal, but in a destructive way.
Right. 100%. Everyone's just kind of like, that's me too. I get it. And that's the beauty of a group, because here's what I know about, emotional eating. You feel very isolated because there's a lot of shame around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The behavior is shameful, right?
Yep.
Overeating, binge eating, emotionally eating. And so when you're in an environment where you recognize that this isn't just me, their thinking is just like mine, I could totally relate to that. One, it makes you feel better. And two, oftentimes the coaching that I give to one person other people benefit because the coaching's technically the same, right? Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Mhm.
Listening to the thoughts. For a lot of it is recognizing where it started. For most people, it started in childhood. There was some message, right? Back in the day, either food is scarce, you have to clean your plate, you can't get dessert until you clean your plate.
Yeah.
So there's so many people who feel terrible leaving food on their plate because they've been conditioned
Yep.
to eat food they're no longer hungry for.
I'm one of them.
Are you one of those?
Yeah, I am.
Clean the plate club.
Clean the plate, and I've yo-yoed on that too. I've gone through periods of time where I become okay with just either dumping it or saving it. And I'll give my wife credit. She's really good at that. Even if there's only 2 bites left of something, she will save it for next time.
So let
I'll
me
be like, you know what? I'm going to eat those 2 bites because I can't stand seeing them on your plate or seeing like a Tupperware with 2 bites of something in the fridge.
Right. There's something about that makes you uncomfortable. So
It is.
let me ask you, if you don't mind me asking. You could just say pass if you do. But what was the message you got from your parents about finishing the food on your plate? Do you remember?
I cannot say I remember specifically, but I would, if I had to kind of just think about the dynamic as a child, I was very picky. So I was constantly being told to eat my food.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember specifically around clearing the plate, but I know that I was constantly being told that I needed to eat because I just never wanted to eat what was in front of me.
There's something about leaving food over or not taking those last couple of bites. And there's something about it that you probably have in your mind about wasting food.
Yeah,
right? Or throwing it out.
Probably. I am firmly against wasting food, even if it's food I don't want, like the snacks and stuff that my kid eats. I don't want it, but instead of dumping it in the trash, I dump it in my mouth.
Right, but there's a lot of people who do that too, and the truth is, that's what causes people to struggle with their weight, right? I mean, all those extra bites that they're not hungry for add up. If you think about it, over the course of a week, I mean, that could be, several hundred calories of bites you're not hungry for just because. And, I don't mean this in a bad way, and I'm not saying that you do this, but it's kind of like treating your body like the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
I have no problem with that perspective.
So a lot of the work is to actually see your body as this vehicle that takes you through your entire life. Right. And we only have one. And so the way we treat our bodies is what we get back, right? From how we look to how we feel to our health and, health conditions and stuff like that. So, it's, sometimes people don't even think about their body from like the neck down, like they're so disconnected. But,
right.
I try to get people to realize that, everything about this is what takes you through your daily life.
Yeah.
And, what you put in it and how you treat it matters.
Yeah. Managing self-talk is really hard. So you've got your work cut out for you. So how do you do that? How do you get someone to change their own narrative?
Yeah, it takes a little while for people to actually start hearing what they say.
Okay.
And I call it raising the volume. You have to raise the volume on listening to your thoughts, because everything we do every day drives our thoughts. Like if I was going to get up from here and go into another room, I'm thinking I'm going to stand up and go into another room. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do before I do it. And so the same thing is with food and eating.
Okay.
And so when people start to raise the volume, they hear the thought, I'm just going to get, or they notice that they're thinking, what do I feel like eating? Or they notice that they're saying to themselves, I'm in the mood for. And after doing the work for a little bit, when they hear that, they're like, there it is. Or they'll recognize, I come in from the outside and I noticed, I think about what can I eat?
Okay.
It's not about, am I hungry?
Yep.
But the thought is, but that's a trained habitual thought.
Yep.
So a lot of it is recognizing what's your pattern, right? What's your pattern from when you wake up in the morning? What do you say to yourself when you wake up in the morning? Typically for breakfast, people are hungry for breakfast, right? But it's what happens with the rest of the day. And then there's that 3 to 5 o'clock, what I call the bewitching hour, where it's kind of like, too early to eat dinner. Your day is getting quieter. And most people start to think about, what can I eat?
Yeah.
But what can I eat isn't I'm hungry, because I'm hungry is more of a declaration.
Yep. Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And it makes me think of a friend of mine told me, so during the lockdown in the 2020 to 2022, he was home. He had the privilege of keeping his job, so he just worked at home. And then when he went back to work, there was you need to be in the office a couple days a week or whatever. And he wanted to go in all the time. And he's like, you know what? Since I started going into the office, I've lost 10 pounds. Because when I'm home, I just eat all day long. Every time I pass by the kitchen, I grab a snack.
Right.
And so once he was removed from that environment and he ate with intention, then all of a sudden he just lost 10 pounds. Like there was no intention around losing weight. He just
right.
removed all the unintended food consumption.
Yeah, that's it. He ate less food. He was not, the refrigerator wasn't readily available to him, as it is. And so, the thing with the emotional eating, and like, first of all, with so many people, that's why so many people struggle with their weight during COVID, right? Because they were eating for something to do.
Yep.
A lot of people eat when they're bored, and they eat when they're procrastinating on something, right?
That's a good call out. I never really thought about that, but yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. Well, how many people were working from home and it's like, I don't feel like getting to that project. I have to write that paper. I have to respond to these emails. Oh, and you're just like mentally you're not there. So what do? You go get something to eat.
Yep.
Right. It's procrastination. But for so many people, emotional eating is their coping mechanism, right? To deal with feelings they either want to distract from, stuff down. And for some people, there's an empty bucket that needs filling, and people use food to fill that bucket.
I have a specific moment in my life where I first realized for myself that this was a thing, that emotional eating or coping or whatever. And this was 15 years ago. I had applied for a job that I really, really wanted. And I got the call that I did not get the job. And I went and had a donut. I left my office. I walked around the corner. I got a donut and I had a donut. And then I sat there and I'm like, why am I eating this? I never eat donuts. Why am I eating this donut right now? Like, donuts are not a part of my life. And yet I'm like, I'm upset and I'm eating this donut. And that was where I just kind of had this epiphany that, oh, this is a thing. This is a thing that happens and that apparently I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's just that subtle, right? And there's the automatic pilot. A habit is something we do without thinking. And so that was probably ingrained to some degree that you just never noticed. I mean,
yeah, apparently.
right. And here's the thing, not everybody eats every emotion. So whatever it was that you were feeling in that motion, for you, it might've been, rejection or sadness or anger, right? Whatever the feeling might've been, all of the above, whatever the emotion was for you, that was triggered. And you might not have noticed in the past, but those emotions or that emotion, you've done that before.
Yeah.
You just didn't make the connection.
Right. Yeah. That was the moment of connection.
Right.
And it was interesting because I was emotional about not getting the job, but then I was also kind of able to take a step back at that point and be like, what is happening right now? Why am I eating this donut? This is weird. Yeah.
Because it was so atypical for you.
Right.
Right. Had you been a little bit more aware, you might have thought, what feelings am I eating? Right? Like what, what am I choosing not to deal with or, face or accept?
Yeah.
Right? Because those feelings don't feel good.
Right.
And so that's usually, and people don't really think about what am I feeling? Because once that trigger happens, they just think about the food because they've conditioned themselves, kind of like, Pavlov's dogs, right? The bell rings, the dog salivate. It's no different.
Yeah.
So, it's an automatic response.
So emotional eating and habitual eating, they seem like two very different things, but is that correct, or are they related closely?
They're two different things.
Okay.
Right? Emotional eating is feelings driven.
Right.
And habitual eating is really habit driven, right?
Yeah, I just do it because it's what I do.
It's what you do, or it's the same time of day, right? It's the same time of day. It's that 3:00 hour. You're thinking about the chocolate. You've trained yourself to think about the chocolate at that hour. So, and everybody has their different habits. Some people, snack at a certain time of day. Most people eat after dinner when they're not hungry.
I mean, it's got to even be like a glass of wine, right? Glass of wine before bed or something.
Well, I don't know. I haven't really heard. Most people don't drink right before bed, but they will eat something right before bed.
Okay.
But they'll have a drink after dinner, so, alcohol is not any much different from food, right? For a lot of people, they're just like, well, it's still calories. And it's like, I need the drink. I have to have a drink. And what are they doing? They're trying to, numb out from the day or take the edge off of something, so alcohol or food, sugary stuff, it's no different. You're trying to numb out and take the edge off of something and not really wanting to deal with kind of what really needs to be dealt with. And truthfully, they're feelings. Feelings pass.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I'm just like, if you notice the feelings, ride the wave, because nothing's going to happen to you, right? You might feel bad for a little bit, but you're not going to die. You're not going to pass out. Nothing negative happens. But so many people just immediately go turn towards the food or the drink as soon as they're triggered with those emotions.
So how do you do that? How do you get ahead of the action that these feelings or habits are causing, of the picking something up and putting it in your mouth?
Yeah, well, that's where the awareness process comes in. So, I mean, this is a process that it kind of builds on itself, right? It's not immediate because it's truly about rewiring your brain.
Okay.
Right? Forming those new grooves for the new habits and for the new thoughts and the new way of thinking, which happens over time and which happens with practice, right? We get better at things that we practice, but as my clients go through the process, they start to notice because they're aware that they're doing the work and they're aware that they want to eat, right? So the question is, am I eating because I'm hungry, right? Is this hunger? And so then the next step is to kind of discern, if it's not hunger, what is it? What's driving me to want to eat? What's going on for me right now? And sometimes they don't have the answer in the moment, but what they do know is they're not hungry.
Okay. Oh,
right.
Okay. Well, that's a great start.
Yeah, right. And sometimes that's all it takes. I'm not hungry, so let me leave the kitchen. Go someplace, go out for a walk, go for a walk, go sit in the backyard, go upstairs. I don't care what it is. Go be with yourself for a minute and figure out what just made me think about eating when I know I'm not hungry. What drove me to think about food? And that's how you start to unpack some of this stuff, because you start to notice what's driving you to eat, right? And then you become aware. Now I know when this happens, and I think about food, it's not hunger. Here's what I do instead. Right? And you kind of build on the new habit.
I can see why a longer term program would be helpful, if not necessary, in this instance, because it's one thing to just be told, okay, well, if you're about to eat something that you shouldn't eat, take a moment to think about it. But asking people to actually report on what they're consuming and when, right? And then you can come back to it and say, okay, well, tell me about this, what was happening at this moment.
Right.
Then you can take them back to that moment. Whereas just telling them, hey, when you're in the moment, take a step back and think about it. That's pretty hard to do. So you're creating these habits by talking about it after the fact to get them to the point where they can think about it in the moment.
But also during, because I want them to be writing their thoughts, right? Like if they ate a bag of M&Ms, why? Right?
Oh, sometimes so you have them log it as they're doing it.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, because if sometimes you just feel like eating some M&Ms, sometimes you just feel like, and you choose. It's about everything you put in your mouth is a choice.
Right.
So if they choose the M&Ms, if it's a mindful choice, they'll never feel the guilt and remorse that they typically feel when it's emotionally driven or habitually
like your
driven.
Cheeseburger.
Right, exactly. That was mindfully driven. I made the choice and I enjoyed every bite of that cheeseburger and there was no guilt whatsoever.
Fabulous.
Right? And that's why I want to teach my clients to eat, because you shouldn't feel guilty for eating a cheeseburger once in a while, right? And the truth is, you can't eat a cheeseburger and fries most days of the week and think you're going to lose weight, right? Or not regain weight that you've lost, right? That's not realistic. But you could certainly eat a cheeseburger once a week, right? If you choose to, if everything else balances out over the course of the week, like you're doing all the right things, you're doing some exercise, you're drinking some water, you're eating well. And eating well and eating nutritiously doesn't mean eating plain, boring, uninteresting food.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people feel like in order to lose weight, their food can't have any fat, their food can't have any flavor, it's got to be as plain as can be, it can't have sauce. And here's what I say to people. So many people are like, I can't have a tuna sandwich because there's fat in the mayo. Well, it's not the fat and that little bit of mayo from the tuna sandwich that's making you overweight. It's all the eating that you do after dinner. It's all the bites that you take. It's cleaning your plate when you're content, right? It's eating when you're not hungry. It's justifying, it's just only, right? If you justify it's just only, like those squares of chocolate 7 days a week times 2 squares of chocolate, it's not just a little bit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. So that's a lot. That's a lot of the process.
Okay. So do you work with people at all on what to eat, or is it okay? You do.
Yeah, because here's how I feel. Like a lot of programs that do mindset work for emotional eating and weight loss only focus on the mindset work.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people need to learn how to eat the life that they live because they've only been on diets.
Right.
So this is about, you get to indulge, but let's look at what it looks like in your life to eat well. What are the foods? You have to like the foods you eat. You can't just eat food because you think it's going to help you lose weight, because again, not sustainable for the long term.
Right.
So I take them through the nutrition part. I help them create that roadmap to create their way of being around food and eating, so that no matter where they are in the world, right, you gravitate towards those foods. You have what I call your way of being. So if I'm traveling, I'm not going to eat completely different, right? Like I don't really eat pepperoni pizzas here. So I'm not going to go someplace and just because there's pepperoni pizza there, I'm going to be like, well, ooh, now I get to eat pepperoni pizza because I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
So, it's just helping them kind of change the way they think in their relationship with food. And so the nutrition part, and then going deeper into the mindset and self-talk and limiting belief stuff.
And I mean, and really it's still mindset, even on the nutrition side then. I mean, you might be providing some education around nutrition, right? Okay, well, here's how to make whole foods not boring,
right.
or
right.
Here's why what you think is bad isn't bad, or vice versa. But to your point you just made, a lot of it is around mindset, right? Okay, once you have it dialed, then it becomes your way of life, regardless of the setting that you're in.
It's all mindset. I truly feel that the missing piece to weight loss that stays off is changing your mind. People are programmed a certain way. I mean, just going back to you feeling uncomfortable if your wife wants to throw away those last 2 bites of food. You don't want to see it in a Tupperware, but you don't want to see it in the garbage either. So you rather eat it, right? That's a mindset, right? That's the part that needs to change, because there's a relationship with food there that isn't serving you. And, you're clearly not somebody who needs to lose weight, but for those people that eat those extra bites, that have that relationship with food, they're making choices that sabotage themselves and their efforts in their weight loss rather than serves them.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the words that I use. It's just like, does that choice serve you? Or is that more sabotaging? Does that thought serve you? Or is that thought more sabotaging, right? What actions can you change that will serve you in reaching your goals and getting you what you say you want, versus the thoughts and the behaviors that always end up sabotaging you?
Yep. And I am on board with tracking macronutrients and calories not being an effective lifestyle, but I do like to track for myself on a periodic basis, just because it's very interesting. I find it very interesting to track without making any changes, just to see how I'm doing, right? Like, okay, this is my lifestyle now. What do my macronutrients look like? Because I like to know. I'm interested in those things. And then I can compare that. Okay, well, this is how I'm eating versus how I intend to be eating. And then I can make that change and look at that difference. And sometimes I really am overeating by hundreds of calories a day based on where I want to be, just based on the numbers. But I can cut out those hundreds of calories and I can still feel fine. I can feel great. I might even feel better. But because I gave myself the knowledge of what I was doing versus what I wanted to be doing, it just kind of gave me that little nudge back to what I want to be doing.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I do believe in keeping food journals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what you eat, quantify as best as possible how much you eat, what time you eat, and why you're eating. Are you eating because
Yeah.
you're hungry, or is there something else driving that? So I do believe in keeping food records because, one, when I tell my clients, if you eat a peanut, I want you to put it on the paper, right? Because it's those little bites that people think are negligible that they don't realize. Because oftentimes I hear I'm eating really well, but I don't know why I'm not losing weight, because they're not accounting for those little extra bites that they tell themselves it's not that big of a deal.
Well, what's very unique about your approach here, and I think what is probably missing in a lot of coaching that people receive, whether it's from a nutritionist or even just, a personal trainer that's kind of trying to have a whole body approach, is the why.
Mm-hmm.
Not what are you eating, but why. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, because so many people eat, and here's what I say: people struggle with their weight because they eat when eating has nothing to do with being hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and they overeat when they're eating.
Yep.
Right? So if 3 meals a day times 7 days a week at a minimum, if you're overfeeding your body, right, all those extra bites, you clean your plate for, whatever reason that you do, but when you're full versus content, 1 to 3 times a day times 7 days, there's a lot of extra food going in your body. And I always say to the client, if you didn't eat that, if you ate content versus full or stuffed, you honored your satiety and your hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine all the calories that just easily get left behind because you're no longer eating when you're not hungry.
Yeah. Would you say that in your discussions and your observation, peer pressure comes into play very much, where I just do it because my partner does it, or I'm doing it because my friends do it, or because this is the lifestyle that the people around me expect me to participate in?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that eat to make other people happy.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who have the narrative in their head that people care. They're afraid to be judged. This
Mm-hmm.
person's going to think that, right? Or my husband or my wife cooked me a meal and I feel badly if I don't eat it or finish.
Yeah.
I kind of help them get over that, because it's just, I tell my clients, I don't want you eating something to make somebody else happy. Nobody cares what you eat, right? Nobody's really judging you. It's really their own, that narrative in your head. It's a story that people tell themselves, right? Well, so-and-so is going to feel bad if I don't eat it. I'm afraid to make her feel bad. And I'm just like, trust me when I tell you, she doesn't care.
Yeah. Or they
Right?
don't have your best interests in mind, Oh,
Right.
I got you this drink, so you have to have this drink. Well, I don't want the drink, but thank you.
But here's part of it. So there's a lot of, clients that I work with, whether it's male or female, and their spouse is, they're used to having that drink after dinner, or they're
Mm-hmm.
used to sharing every dessert or something like that. So the partner is trained to ask, because the belief is this makes so and so happy. Right?
Yeah.
So then the person is saying no, and they're worried about making the other person feel bad. But a lot of it is communicating what's important to you.
Vacation, beautiful
right?
thing.
And just kind of like, but it's all part of the coaching. I mean, I'm kind of like a life coach, nutritionist, therapist rolled into
really.
one.
I'm getting that. Yeah.
And so, because I do help people create boundaries with people in their lives, and boundaries in general, there's a lot of women who don't have a voice. They've been taught to be people pleasers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women, and even men have been taught to put everybody else above themselves. And so what I hear a lot is, I'm too tired by the time it comes to me, or I don't have time.
Yeah.
Or, I feel guilty if I make myself a priority before everything else. So there is that psychological component that needs to be addressed. There's so many deeper reasons why people emotionally eat and struggle with their weight.
Mm-hmm.
And it has zero, for those of you that are listening, about how intelligent you are, how educated you are. It has zero to do with that. I mean, I've had women say to me, I run multi-million-dollar companies and I can't get a hold on this emotional eating thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a lot to do with all the other stuff that makes you up as a human that we need to kind of dig a little deeper on to understand, why do you use food as a coping mechanism when what you really want to do is lose weight and never gain it back again?
Yeah. It's interesting. So my kind of entry into this wellness space where I get to have these amazing conversations started in fitness. So I taught self-defense for years, and fitness is a component of that, but not the primary component. And I wanted to kind of get into that space. So I got my credential in fitness training and nutrition coaching, and I started running workouts for people. And it quickly became apparent that people coming to a personal trainer were coming with specific goals, and simply running workouts was not going to get them anywhere near accomplishing those goals. And so I had to take several steps back. And, while a hard, intense workout can be fun and can be rewarding, it is not the answer. It can
Right.
be a part of the equation, part of the solution, but it's not the solution. And so my coaching evolved into, like yourself, into largely lifestyle. I'll still put
Mhm.
together workouts for people, and I can kill them if they want me to, but that's not my purpose. That's not why I want people coming to me. I want people coming to me because they have a specific objective. And, in our kind of introductory call where we decide if we want to work together, they have to be open to lifestyle change, right? It's not simply, okay, you're going to come to me 3 days a week and we're going to work out, or I'm going to write you this virtual program that you're going to do and you're going to report back to me. No, we're going to change a whole bunch of stuff, folks, because, for you to be physically healthy, there's a lot of boxes that we have to check as far as making sure you're doing the right things.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, a lot of people don't know this about me. I was a personal trainer for 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And while I was personal training, I was personal training at the very first, it's a fitness gym called Equinox in New York City.
Oh yeah, we've got an Equinox right over here.
Okay. And so that's where I got, certified as a trainer. I was also in management and sales, but nonetheless, and it was while I was personal training my clients that I decided to go back for my degree, get my master's in nutrition.
Okay.
And, so I did both for a long time. And then I kind of just really evolved just into the nutrition coaching aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, you can't if weight loss is your goal, it's hard to change your body, and whether it's body fat or weight loss, without changing your nutrition, because it's really about what goes into your body that kind of gets you what you want. And a lot of people kind of think that us as professionals, like, we have the magic wand, right?
Yeah.
Like, all we need to do is tell them what to do.
Yep.
But, the truth is, the client has to be willing to do the work, right? I always say, I provide the roadmap. I give you everything you need to get to your destination. You need to put your hands on the wheel and drive.
Yep.
Right?
And
That's the part.
And I imagine, at least for myself, I've found a lot of things that I am coaching people on, they already know. They just need someone to kind of put it in their face and say, this is the way, and be their accountability partner.
Right. Well, I joke around. I always say, if I had $1 for every person that said to me, I know what I should be doing, I'm just not doing it. Right.
Yeah.
So, not to mention, there's every diet under the sun, right? Even those people who go on, I'll just say the new weight loss drugs, or even people who have, the bariatric surgery, they still have the same brain. And so you can have that fixed, but you might have a smaller stomach, but you have the same brain, you have the same way of thinking.
Yep.
You might have the injection going on and it's helping you lose weight, but it doesn't change the habits and behaviors that got you to need that injection in the first place.
Right.
And people have to recognize that that's what really needs changing, because there's a lot of science that shows when you go off the drugs, you gain the weight back, and it's not surprising.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's like the diet, right? There are some very effective diets out there, but if it's an unnatural lifestyle for you and you're doing it specifically for weight loss and not because you want a lifestyle change,
Right.
then you do it until you can't stand it anymore until you have that cheat day, and then you just bombshell from there, or it gets old and you can't handle it anymore, and back you go.
Yeah, it's just another temporary solution.
Yeah, like I have no problem with keto. I think keto cycling is great for people that do it intentionally, because there are some amazing health benefits of keto. But I think as a lifestyle, or as a weight loss diet, I don't think keto is the way to go. Just it's too specific. It's not lifestyle.
Right.
It
Well,
doesn't address all those things.
it's not sustainable. Like I'll tell somebody, I remember working with a client, she was doing great, she was losing weight. We kind of just, we were 2-3 months into working together, and she's like, my girlfriend just lost 20 pounds on keto. And I'm like, listen, if you can tell me that if you start doing keto, that you could do keto for the rest of your life, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you think that you're going to go on keto, lose the weight, and then change something, let's just stay doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep.
And I truly, truly, truly believe that. I feel like, the how much and the how often in 7 days, when people kind of establish that as a guideline, where they recognize that they can indulge, they don't have to be restrictive.
Yeah.
If they're mostly feeding themselves well and doing all the right things, like that piece of cake or the pizza or the cheeseburger, it's not the game changer, right? But it's a slower weight loss process, right? You're not going to lose 20 pounds in a month, but if anybody's telling you you're going to lose 20 pounds in a month, it's not a healthy way of losing weight to begin with, and it's not going to be sustainable.
Yep. I have turned people away because what they want is not what I do.
Right. Exactly.
I can help you lose 20 pounds in a month, but I'm not going to, because it is not not healthy, and it is not sustainable.
Right. 100%. I say the same thing. And for us as professionals, it's so easy to do the quick fix for people.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would just be feeding into what they struggle with to begin with, and it's not what I could do.
Yeah, and people have a hard time they have a hard time with the long game, because if they're going to inconvenience themselves enough to change their lifestyle, or to try to change their lifestyle, then they want the reward of results. But it takes time, right? It takes a little while for results to manifest when you're doing it the right way. And that's where just a continued relationship with a trainer, a coach, whatever, can be hugely beneficial, just because you've got someone there to reassure you that those results are coming and that you are doing the right things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have some clients that work with me for a couple of years, and it's not because they still need to lose weight. It's because they want to stay in the process.
Yeah.
Right. Of living the lifestyle that they've been establishing. And, as we know, having accountability helps.
Yep. It's huge. It's huge, especially when you're doing things that are hard. Emotionally hard things are worse than physically hard things.
Yes. Yes. Well, because it takes more energy. Your brain needs to be engaged more.
Yeah, absolutely. Telling someone to lift weights that are heavier than they think they can lift, no big deal. They'll still try. But telling someone to do something in their life that they don't think they can do, or that they don't want to do, is vastly more challenging.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If they don't want to do it, they'll never do it.
Yeah.
If they don't want to accomplish it, they'll never do it. So that's mindset. If you don't really want something, if you don't really believe that you could actually do or change something, you're not going to change it. Yeah. Because that's the story you keep telling yourself. I can't, it's too hard, I don't have time. That's the story. But for somebody who really wants to change, and you give them the tools and the roadmap, they do the work and they get the results that they want.
Yep.
I see it all the time.
Yep. And I love that. You do the work, you get the results.
Right.
You just have to give yourself time.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I kind of feel like anything that's worth having in life is worth working for, and it takes time and effort to get that thing.
Yeah. And
right.
In most cases, the things that are most rewarding are the things that are not easy.
Exactly.
The most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life is to be a father, and that is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yes. Right? There's no handbook for that.
Yeah. And if there was, it probably wouldn't apply anyway, because my kids are different than all the other kids.
Of course they are.
Everyone's kids are different from all the other kids. Yeah. Well, Lisa, this has been a fantastic conversation, and just the takeaway of asking yourself the why am I eating this? Like you said, even if it's just that one little peanut, why am I eating this one little peanut?
Right.
If people can just start doing that, that is an amazing first step in that direction of just that self-awareness of all of the things that you're putting into your body and why, and do you really need to?
Yeah. Am I hungry? Am I eating because I'm hungry?
Right.
Easy question.
Yep. Well, perfect. And before we wrap up, you have a book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, the book is called Food Fight: Winning the Battle with Food and Eating to Achieve Sustainable Weight Loss. So in the book, I talk a lot about my methodology
Okay.
that I teach my clients. There's some recipes in there to get an idea of how I coach people on eating, but it's really about the mindset methodology and, what to do to start changing that mindset.
Yeah.
And the book's on
Awesome.
Amazon.
Yeah, perfect. So I will link to both your website if folks want to get in touch with you, as well as to your book on the show notes for today's episode at thesuperhumanblueprintpodcast.com. And I am going to start being more conscientious about finishing my wife's food or eating those last snacks that my kids didn't eat. So I'm
Well,
back at it.
yep, you're going to raise your awareness. You're going to notice probably that you do it actually more than you think you do.
Yes. Well, awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I really love having these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Okay, have a good one.
You too. Bye.